Alright, here we have a Thinkpad X220 motherboard which does not power up. So the symptoms are that we can plug in the charger or the battery and the power button simply doesn't respond to any input. I've already taken all of the protective plastic stickers off of this side of the board on the right, as you can see. And we can start by checking some of our base resistances as well as our standby voltages, which are the first things to come online once the charger is plugged in. Alright, so we've checked that all three enable signals on this TPS51220 chip here are actually present, which means that this chip should be powering up. But we measured the voltage rails here and they are not present, which means that we could probably rule this chip as faulty and a prime candidate for replacement. However, if you want to be extra paranoid that it's actually the chip and not maybe something else, what you can also troubleshoot, and this is also a rather common occurrence I think on these boards, is when you plug in the power, these voltages may actually be present for maybe 1 or 2 seconds and then turn off, which means that something else in the circuit is probably disabling that enable to this chip, and then it might be something else such as the two bottom chips here, which will govern the actual power up process. So I fast forwarded about 2 months because I finally got the replacement parts I need off of AliExpress, and now I can get to replacing and repairing this board. So I was a bit too eager to fix the board itself, so I forgot to film the process. But what I've done is basically this chip here, the TPS51220 that we were discussing before. I've replaced that, and I've also taken off a lot of the protective black sheets because they'll probably melt off when I put the preheater on. So this has now been replaced, and we can put in the power to see if there's any difference in our symptoms. Alright, I'll put the multimeter into voltage mode, and I've already got this plug here already, so I'll plug this in and we'll check for any changes. First, let's check 20 volts present, and we now have 5 volts and 3.3 volts as well. So I'm going to put this back on to a display and see if we can get any picture out. Alright, so I've connected the display only to see if we can get the picture out, and I'll plug in the power cable now and see if we can get it to turn on. So we got a backlight flash, which is good, and the fans are spinning. There we go, we have a picture. So to avoid this from overheating, I'm going to turn it off and we'll test it out properly once it's been put back together. So before I end the video, I also want to quickly cover off some other major points of troubleshooting this TPS51220 chip that should be done before replacing it. The first part is this chip has 3 enables that we measured. There's 1 enable for the chip itself, and then 2 more enables for each of the voltage rails that this chip controls in standby. So the main enable allows the chip to turn on 3 voltages. The first is VREF, which is always 2 volts or should be 2 volts. And there's also VREG 3.3, which is usually always on unless there's problems with the chip itself, and also VREG 5, which is 5 volts. So if any of these 3 are missing with a proper enable and a high enough VIN, then the chip itself may need replacing. One other thing you can check is the resistances on each of these 3 pins to make sure that there's no shorts going to ground because of bad capacitors.